Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Selling Greenville, your favorite real estate podcast here in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm your host, as always, Stan McCune, realtor right here in the Greenville area. You can find all of my contact information in the show notes if you need to reach out to me for any of your real estate needs. Just a reminder, as always, please like, rate, review, subscribe, all of those good things with regard to this show. Whatever podcast app you're using. And if you're on YouTube, same thing. You can subscribe on every single one of them, and that will help you to make sure you don't miss future content. But then also, if you could just leave a little rating, like, or leave a comment, or whatever your podcast app allows you to do, anything like that is a way to support the show. So all I ask of you guys is to please go ahead and do that. And yeah, I'd appreciate it if you could. So I just got back from Punta Cana, spent not quite a week there, but me and my wife had the opportunity to get away. Wonderful place. My third time there. The beaches in the Dominican Republic are just incredible. I love everything about Punta Cana. Granted, we basically stay sequestered in the resort that we're in when we go, but it's a really phenomenal area. Highly recommend it. Our beaches in South Carolina are nice, but they are not Punta Cana nice. That being said, I'm glad to be back. As always, my phone was blowing up while I was gone. I still take all those calls, all those text messages, all those emails. I'm still working when I'm traveling, but I appreciate the people once they find out that I'm traveling, because I don't tell everyone. I don't want people to feel bad about reaching out to me while I'm traveling. So in some instances, if people don't need to know, I don't tell them, because again, I don't want them to feel like, oh, I can't call Stan because he's on vacation. But yes, my phone was blowing up the entire week, which was fine. I always joke with my wife, well, maybe I'll get an extra closing out of this, and then as a result, it'll pay for this vacation. But anyway, I don't know. This is already going off the rails, and I'm only a few minutes into this episode. So we need to jump right into the topic at hand. I've been thinking about this recently. The question of should you sell or hold certain real estate right now? And this is a question that I see people asking, and it got me thinking about it. Like, what are the examples of real estate that I think that you should sell versus the examples that you should hold? And this is a matter of thinking about right now, in the near future, and in the distant future. Okay, I'm not just specifically thinking about it through, one specific lens versus another. But there's a lot to consider when you think about selling or holding real estate. In fact, there's a lot of real estate I thought that I was going to hold for much longer that ended up selling. And there's real estate that I thought I would sell that I ended up holding longer than I thought I would. And so this is a very pertinent question. I think it's one that's important to answer, and I think it's something that will interest you guys. I think as well, it's worth mentioning, I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. This podcast is going to be more overarching, not necessarily Greenville specific, but anytime I talk about real estate, it's through a Greenville lens, because even though I have a general knowledge of real estate outside of Greenville, really, I'm only an expert in Greenville, right? So nothing that I say about real estate outside of Greenville, I can't consider myself an expert. I'm relying on other experts to help me to understand the market outside of Greenville. So understand that even though this isn't a Greenville specific episode, it's still going to be through a Greenville lens. Now, with that in mind, should I sell or should I hold? We're going to start with mid-century modern homes. Mid-century modern homes are all the rave right now. I mean, it is insane how popular they are. Everyone wants a mid-century modern home. They love the streamlined looks, the unique roof lines, the massive windows, some of them that are the really nice ones, like the Frank Lloyd Wright homes that are incorporated into nature, all of that. And it's interesting that this has only happened really since the pandemic, I would say. And I don't think the pandemic really has anything to do with it, although, I guess I could be wrong. But I think what has happened the past few years is there's just been fatigue about production built homes. And so people are, looking for something that doesn't just look like everything else. And so what are the options? Okay. If we rule out production built homes, then what else do we have? Okay. Well, if you don't have a huge budget, there's brick ranches and things of that nature. A lot of people aren't necessarily looking for that look right now. And so some of these mid-century modern homes are a way to cheaply get a really unique look, in some cases for a pretty good price. That being said, if I am a mid-century modern owner, I am selling in this market right now. And here's why. Right now, they are trending. And mid-century modern homes have, like I said, we went for a stretch 10 years ago. Nobody wanted a mid-century modern home. They were just like, man, that looks so weird. It's just odd shaped. What's going on with, I don't know. People just didn't like them, right? It was just too different. And trends, things swing, right? Wallpaper is coming back in, right? I never thought that would happen. Gold has come back in. Gold interior finishes has come back in. So these different stylistic things, they come and they go. White walls went away for a while. White is back in. So all of these things. Mid-century modern homes are in right now. I don't know how long their time in the spotlight is going to be. It might be a few more months. It might be a few more years. Perhaps it could go on for a lot longer than I think. But I suspect that as quickly as it came, it will go that quickly. And if I own a mid-century modern home right now, I am selling that style because it is currently hot. And we know what is hot eventually cools. And I suspect that it will cool. When it happens, it's going to happen very fast. It's going to catch people by surprise. Don't be the one at the bottom of the wave. Be the one at the crest of the wave. It's better to sell early than to sell late, in my opinion. And this might not be late. This might be right on time, just depending on what the market does. Number 2, beachfront real estate. Obviously, we all love the beach. I just came from the beach. I've actually thought about buying real estate in Punta Cana before. They've got, incredible looking condos very close to the beach for like $100,000. But for my 2 cents, I am selling beachfront real estate. And here's why. I'm not talking about Punta Cana. I'm talking about, and again, this is where I was saying it was not going to be specifically Greenville centric. But a lot of my listeners have multiple homes. So if you're interested in Greenville, you may have a home at the beach, or perhaps you're considering moving from Greenville to the beach or vice versa. Who knows? I'm selling beachfront real estate, and there's 2 main reasons. One is a definite, this is going to happen, and the other one is more of an outside possibility. The definite is that insurance costs are going to keep going up and potentially going to become absolutely insane. We're already seeing this in Florida. And so if you own beachfront real estate in Florida, you're already feeling the squeeze. If you own beachfront real estate in South Carolina or North Carolina, you're starting to feel the squeeze. It hasn't gotten bad yet. Sell before it gets bad. I'm just telling you, it has the potential to be really, really, really bad. If what happens in Florida, where some people are now starting to have to pay $30,000 to $40,000 a year, $30,000 to $40,000 a year to simply have homeowners insurance. Why is that? It's a variety of reasons. A lot of it has to do with just the hurricanes and the windstorms and the tornadoes and the hail that just comes through there. Well, South Carolina is not as bad as Florida in that regard, but South Carolina gets hit by these things too. And so keep that in mind. If you have beachfront real estate, I would sell on the basis strictly of the likelihood of homeowners insurance skyrocketing in the future. But I'll mention another one. And I've mentioned this before, and some of you are going to laugh, and some of you might not. But there is a non-zero chance that sea levels will rise to the point where some beachfront real estate gets impacted very, very negatively. And I mean, there is a clear science to this, and that is that as ice caps melt, and they are melting, like that, it is undeniable, regardless of what you think about climate change, ice caps are melting. And when that happens, sea levels rise. Now, we've already seen the sea levels are rising. Again, that's a scientific thing. There's a lot of evidence to that. The question is, are they going to rise to the point where beachfront real estate becomes impacted? We don't know. I would say it's, generally speaking, probably not the most likely scenario, right? I'm not betting that that's what's going to happen. But if you're thinking like an investor, you have to think about all potential possibilities. And that's one of the ones that I'm considering. And why, unless you're very wealthy, and this is, by the way, a question that I get from people when I mention this. It's like, well, every single politician that's platforming against climate change has beachfront property. Listen, every single politician that has beachfront property, that's a vacation home for them. That's not where they live, okay? They have multiple properties. They are so wealthy that they have tons and tons of properties. So guess what? They can afford to lose one. They don't care. They just want the luxury of having a beachfront house. And so you can't really, that doesn't prove anything, okay? People that are super wealthy are willing to take gambles on luxuries in life that they're willing to lose. But normies, right? Like me, and most likely you, if you're listening, that losing an entire home, or having a home completely devalued due to something like rising sea levels could be devastating. And so, in my opinion, that's a sell opportunity. Sell before you need to, right? Once you need to, it's usually too late. Homes that need, number 3, homes that need updating, okay? Cosmetic updates, other updates. Hold those, okay? I'm saying hold homes that need updating, and here's why. The market right now is awful for homes that need updating. People, they just don't have the money to buy a home, put the down payment, pay for all their, all their inspections and all of that, appraisals, attorney fees, all of that. And then on top of that, now they've got a 7% mortgage rate, and maybe they had to pay additional closing costs to buy that down to 6.25. Still very high in comparison to what it's been for several years. So basically we have the most, I say basically, but in actuality, we have the most unaffordable housing market of all time. And people can't afford to buy a house and then update it unless that house is priced so competitively that it's basically under market. You don't want to be a seller that sells under market, right? So if you have a home that needs updating, hold that home or do the updates and then sell. But trying to sell a home in this market that needs updating is not a good idea, generally speaking. Here's another one. Number 4, homes near power lines. In case you don't know, there is a growing group of people that refuse to live at homes that are near power lines. There's a concern of, I don't know, radiation or something. I don't get into all this kind of stuff. I'm not a real big, if you look at everything, everything's going to kill you at some point, right? The water has chemicals in it that's going to kill you. Plastics are going to kill you. Processed sugar is going to kill you. Fumes are going to kill you. Power line, everything's going to kill you. Okay. So maybe I'm just putting my head in the sand, in the Punta Cana beach sand. I don't know. But that's not something that moves the needle for me, but it moves the needle for a lot of people. And as a real estate professional, I respect that, right? Even if that's not my personal belief, it's not my job to impose my beliefs on my clients or on anyone in real estate. My point is simply that people do believe in this, okay, at the end of the day, and that's important. But I do think that in the future, there will be studies that are done, there will be things that are going to be done that are going to probably disprove that power lines are really impacting anything, and or the current sentiment, the concerns that people have are just going to more or less go away in future generations. And so I believe that you should hold homes that are near power lines, because right now their value is being negatively impacted by this sentiment that could just be a flash in the pan or could be disproven. Now, none of this I'm saying in here is investment advice, because I don't know what you have or what you don't, and it's case by case, right? You might have a home near power lines that if I looked at, I'd be like, oh yeah, you should sell this. Maybe it's in a neighborhood where all the homes are near power lines, and that's just a factor that you have to consider, and it's not really impacting the value of the home for other reasons. But generally speaking, that is something I would say. Homes near power lines, that is, I would hold as opposed to selling right now. Wait and see if the power line situation becomes less of a concern for people, or maybe these power lines get buried. We're seeing that in parts of Greenville. Some power lines that are aerial are being buried, and that seems to alleviate the concerns that people have. And so that could also be a resolution to this. Hold homes that are near power lines. What about homes, number 5, that are 5,000 square feet plus? Okay, large homes, right? And some of you might be thinking, well, how many of those are there? There's quite a few, actually. And it was kind of arbitrary to kind of figure out where to draw the line. I thought about drawing the line at like 4,500 square feet. I wasn't exactly sure where to draw the line, but 5,000 just felt right to me. And I'm saying that if you have a home that large, you need to sell. And here's why. The population is starting to is basically we're no longer at replacement in terms of the population, right? Fewer people are being born than are dying right now. The only thing that's keeping our population afloat in the United States is immigration. We don't know if that's always going to be the case. And I think birth rates are going to start declining even more. Again, I'm certainly not an expert on this, but just anecdotally, I really think that's going to happen. There's a variety of reasons that I'm not going to get into on the show why I think that's going to happen. But the long story short is, between birth rates declining, which means that there's fewer people that are going to be buying homes in the future, combined with smaller families and maybe fewer marriages. I mean, who knows? The demand for large homes is going to go away at some point, in my opinion. This is what I see happening in the future. Now, how large of a home are we talking about? Well, that was the arbitrary part of it. I think that for most families that have let's just say a family of 3 or 4, a 3,000 square foot home for most doesn't feel too big. And I think if you get to 4 or 5 in your family, I think that a 3,500 to 4,000, maybe even 4,500 square foot home doesn't feel too big to most people. Once you start getting into 5,000, 6,000, 700,000, or 700, 5, 6, 7,000 square foot homes, those are like really, really large homes. Those are homes that are hard to keep up with. And I just think that the market's just not going to be there in the future with the way things are going in the U.S. demographics. And so if you have one of those really large homes, this isn't the kind of thing where you need to sell today. But you need to be considering this shouldn't be a home that you're planning to hold on to for 30 or 40 years, in my opinion, because I do think that these homes are going to be devalued and probably pretty tremendously. Because what happens if literally no one wants a large home? And on the flip side of this, I'm very bullish on small homes. This isn't one of my bullet points in this, but I think that small homes are going to be really massive moving forward. I think that there's going to be a huge group of Gen Alpha, for instance, the youngest generation right now, that are into smaller homes, and so I'm much more bullish on smaller homes moving forward than I am on the really, really large homes. Now, before we go on to the next 5, I've got a special announcement here. We have a sponsor. I've been doing this show for over 4 years, and I have my first sponsorship that we're going to be doing weekly, hopefully from now on, and that is Piper Insurance Group. Piper Insurance Group, who are they? They're a company that I have used many times and have referred them many times to my clients. They are an independent insurance agency, and what that means is that they quote with a lot of different insurance companies and bring back the best rate that they can find. So it's not like, if you're with like Allstate, for instance, they're just going to give you an Allstate quote, or State Farm, kind of the same thing. They are independent. Piper Insurance Group is independent. They can quote a lot of different carriers, get you the best rate for home, auto, and umbrella insurance. They can do investment properties such as flips, rentals, even ground up new construction. They can do residential, commercial investment properties, et cetera, and they can underwrite policies in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. I'm personally friends with Stephen Piper, who is the company owner, and Stephen's great. He's accessible all the time, within reason. He's very accessible. He does a great job. He knows the business in and out, and I'm really excited for them to be a sponsor, because I'm never gonna have a sponsor on here that I don't believe in one way or another. But to have them as my first sponsor, I'm really excited, because Steven has done, and Piper Insurance Group has done, a great job over the years for me and my clients. So please reach out to them for a free quote. Their contact information will be in the show notes moving forward with the show, so you can look them up just go to the show notes or the show description, and you will see Piper Insurance Group in there. All right, on to the next one. In terms of homes to sell or hold, should I sell or hold? Homes with acreage, okay? I'm not going to define that, how much acreage we're talking about, but I would say just think about homes that just have more acreage than the norm. You should hold homes that have acreage, particularly if they have a lot of acreage. And here's why. Land is finite. We only have so much land on this planet, in this country, and in this state. That land, is ready to be gobbled up by a developer or by anyone for whatever reason. And it is extremely, extremely valuable. There could be a future where the value of acreage really goes up, right? Let's say that we have, God forbid, we have some sort of like famine sort of event. These events have happened in human history. And if you have land, if you have acreage that can, allow you to be able to do mini farming or who knows what, that is very, very valuable. And I only see the value of land, even if we don't have an apocalyptic kind of thing, the value of land is just going to keep going up, because so many homes are being built on small lots. And nobody likes that. You very, very rarely run into people that are excited to buy a house that's on a small lot, but they're getting smaller and smaller. And so if you have a home on acreage, you have literal gold in your hands. Do not sell that right now. Hold it, because it's going to get more valuable in the future. There's going to be fewer and fewer homes that have acreage with them. And so that is insanely valuable, and it's only going to get, in my opinion, more valuable in the future. Number 7, condos and apartments. Sell condos and apartments. Let me tell you, I am not bullish on condos or apartments. Now, there's a few reasons for this. One is that a ton of them are being built right now, right? Now, Greenville, I hear some people say that we are building too many apartments. That I actually disagree with. We've talked about this on the show, that Greenville actually has fewer apartments than they need being developed in Greenville County right now. But that's neither here nor there, right? For the sake of this argument, they're still building condos and apartments at a faster rate than they are building other homes, just single-family detached homes. And so if you own a condo or an apartment, you own an asset that could potentially depreciate, because it's going up against all of these other ones that are being built right now. And that is, a major consideration, right? The other thing that I think about condos and apartments are a lot of these are really in a bad financial situation when it comes to the condo association money. A lot of these condos are completely broke. They're, their HOA, or technically speaking, we call it a condo association. Completely broke. And if they're not broke now, they are spiraling in that direction. And you're going to find yourself with a home that has special assessments and increasing HOA costs, things of that nature that you don't want to have to deal with. Additionally, if you go to sell a condo, if a huge percentage of them are not owner occupied, if they're rental properties, and or the reserve fund that the condo association has is inadequate, a buyer can't even get financing on the condos. They would have to go get special financing, from like an investment bank lender or someone like that. And so you actually, the value of a condo or an apartment, you have even less control over that than you do over another property. So, my house that I live in, I have a lot of control over the value of my house, right? Even if my neighbors are, do awful things with their home, I'm spread out enough from them that what they do isn't going to affect the value of my home that much. Now, it could still affect the value, but it's not going to affect it that much at the end of the day. What I do to my house is going to affect the value of it more than anything else. But condos and apartments have a lot more variables that can impact the value of it than any other sort of real estate. With the exception of maybe land, like if you have a tract of land that, is really valuable, things that happen around that land can impact the value. But we're talking about improved real estate improvements, condos and apartments. I am selling. If I have any condos or apartments, I've actually practiced what I preached here. I had condos, I sold them. And it was for these very reasons. I saw the writing on the wall that these were not going to be, future investments, in my opinion. And so I ended up selling those, moving on. That was that. What about homes in areas? This is number 8. Homes in areas that are practically surrounded by commercial real estate. You see this sometimes in Greenville, some other areas. There will be a really heavy commercial area, an area that has attorney offices and maybe a brewery and maybe a restaurant, or maybe just a lot of offices around the area. And then there's a handful of residences. Typically what's happening in these instances is it's near a city. And so the city has rezoned some of these areas to make them more commercial in order to benefit the city. Benefits the city in a variety of ways. But then there's a handful of homes that are left behind that didn't want to be annexed into that commercial zoning, that stayed residential. If you have that type of home that's residential but it's surrounded by commercial, you need to hold, okay? Hold that home. Here's why. That is some of the most valuable real estate that you could have, because when you're in a commercial area, that is typically walkable. And there is very little that is more valuable than walkable real estate. People love that. People love to be able to walk or bike to places. Everyone loves that. They always have, and they always will. That has, it's only been in more recent decades that homes haven't been walkable to places, right? They used to build, the mill houses in Greenville that were built in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and beyond. They were built so that people could walk to work. They were built near the mills. And guess what? We still have a lot of areas in Greenville that have homes that are residential but are in primarily commercial areas, and they are selling. They are super hot right now. And you might be tempted to sell because you're like, okay, yeah, I want to ride the crest of the wave. I'm telling you right now, don't sell, hold, because those areas are going to only keep getting better. There's only going to be more things popping up around them. And maybe at some point down the road, a developer that wants to convert your home to commercial space, just wants to demo the home and put up who knows what. might give you a handsome sum of money for your home. So I say in that instance, hold. Number 9, homes in locations that are close to a growing downtown area. This is kind of similar, but different, right? A growing downtown area. This is to be differentiated from a slumping downtown area, right? A downtown area that is struggling, like San Francisco, for instance. That, we all know that San Francisco, I shouldn't say we all know, but I think a lot of people know that San Francisco real estate is going through a bit of a crisis right now because of policies that have been made by the government there, among other things. But if you have real estate in a location close to a growing downtown, a downtown that's on people's radar, that is improving, that is an area that people want to go to, that businesses want to pop up in, all of that, you want to hold that, because those growing downtowns, they're going to continue to grow, and those downtown areas are going to, in my opinion, hold their value and exponentially grow in value, because again, there's finite space in a downtown area, and it's just a supply and demand thing, right? There's always going to be downtown demand, again, for a growing area. Now, you have to keep your finger on the pulse of whether the area is growing or not, right? If you start to sense that the winds of change are coming, that's your opportunity potentially to sell. But for now, I'm saying if you're close to a growing downtown area, and we've got a bunch of those in the upstate. Obviously, Greenville is one. Travelers Rest is one. I would say Easley is one. To a certain extent, Spartanburg is one. There's a lot of them. You could, toss Simpsonville, Fountain Inn in there. We've got a bunch of small and mid-sized downtown areas in the upstate that are all growing right now. And personally, if I have that real estate, I'm holding, because I'm bullish on the future of this area and of those specific pockets that are in the growing downtown areas. Number 10, and this will be my final one for the day, production-built homes, right? Homes that are kind of all look the same. Those neighborhoods that there's D.R. Horton and Meritage and SK and whatnot. These are not homes that are built poorly per se. Some people might disagree with me. It is what it is. We all have different opinions on this. But the reality is that regardless of how they're built, we could argue all day about whether these production-built homes are built well, whether they're not built well, whatever. One thing is for sure. Nobody really likes to be in a neighborhood where all the homes look the same. Like, I've never actually heard someone that was just like, yeah, I want my home to look exactly the same as my neighbors. That's not something that people want. And as these production-built neighborhoods have gotten more of a foothold on the market, more and more people are like lashing out against it. And this is, I think, a big reason why, I kind of already alluded to this, why the mid-century modern homes have become popular. Because people have fatigue with all these production-built homes. And so I'm telling you right now, production-built homes sell, okay? Now, you might not be, if you're, a family in your first-time home, or, in your second home or whatever, and it's a production-built home, don't feel bad. Don't feel like I'm trashing your home. I'm not. You're not in a position to sell right away. That's fine. Don't panic. You're not going to miss out on anything. I'm just telling you, you need to be thinking about selling sooner than later. Don't think about, I'm buying a production-built home and I'm going to live here for the next 30 years. In my opinion, I don't think that is a prudent decision, because I see the writing on the wall that 30 years from now, these homes are just not going to be interesting to people. People are not going to want to live in them. That's what I think. And there is a variety of reasons for that. One is, we've got a gazillion of them, but also I already mentioned the population dynamics. And I've already mentioned that immigrants make up a huge part of the fact that our population isn't rapidly declining, right? If we didn't have robust immigration, the population would be rapidly declining, and that would have a massive impact on the resellability of certain real estate, such as production-built homes. And there's a lot of supply of production built homes. And the only thing that's keeping them going is that there's a lot of demand. But if that demand goes away, and there's a lot of things that could cause that demand to go away, you could be left in the cold. And again, this is regardless of the possibility. Like, some people believe that these production built homes aren't even the ones that have been built the past 5 years. Some people don't even believe that they're even built to last 30 or 40 years. And that's a conversation I want to discuss on a podcast for another day. But that is something to consider as well. So if I'm in a production built home, I am seriously considering selling. That doesn't mean you have to get a really expensive custom built home. But even, brick ranches, things like that, people are more interested in that. I've got my pulse. I've got my pulse on the market. I've got my ear to the ground. I know what's happening. People would much rather have a nice looking, brick ranch, basic, than a production built home. Generally speaking, that's already happening, and that's only going to continue to happen more so in the future. So production built homes, my opinion is the time is ripe to sell before the bottom falls out of that market. That's all for today's episode. Thank you guys for listening. My contact information is in the show notes. Piper Insurance Group, great insurance company. Their contact information is in the show notes as well. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, all of those good things to the show, and we will talk again next time.